Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. You're listening to IKIM Inspirasi Inforia Islami and you are with me Mazlina Ismail. Alhamdulillah. This week on Man and Nature, episode 4, as we are entering the final week of Ramadan, we hope to continue giving reminders and awareness on how we manage our food consumption that can help to avoid food waste. And for that, thanks to our guest, Dr. Syekh Muhammad Saifuddin bin Syekh Muhammad Saleh, Senior Fellow cum Director at Centre for Science and Environment, IKIM, for being with us again. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Syekh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Hajjah Maslina, how are you today?
Alhamdulillah. How are you on the final week of Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah. I'm healthy and I'm enjoying Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah. Good to know. So you have chosen for this particular topic today, which is knowing our food waste. Would you like to share with us first? Why have you chosen this topic?
Right. Thank you, Hajjah Maslina, listeners of the program Man and Nature.
Mhm.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good evening, and I hope that everyone is healthy, well, and happy, especially now that we are coming towards the end of Ramadan. I hope we have made the most out of the opportunity Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has given us uh,
Ameen.
to reap as many bounties and rewards in the month of Ramadan. As Hajjah Maslina mentioned, our topic today basically is really a continuation to our previous discussions regarding waste, in particular food waste. And in the past weeks, our focus has been on the month of Ramadan, how it is our responsibility to ensure that we do not waste any food and other resources as well during the holy month of Ramadan. So I think what we have discussed, I think many of us are aware of the importance of ensuring that there is no wastage. Uh, the thing is, wastage still happens, and I think it also has to do with the fact that it is an unintentional habit on our part to throw away food without us thinking much about it or without us realizing that we are doing it. It is only right for us to continue our discussion today in Man and Nature by turning the spotlight on what is meant by food waste. Hence,
Mm-hmm.
our title today, Knowing Our Food Waste. I believe it is timely for us to not only learn what is food waste, but also to unlearn old habits and relearn new ones. Because this is the way that we should embark on to ensure that we can inculcate the necessary habit to ensure that we do not simply discard food, especially food that are still good to eat, as a conscious effort on our part to contribute towards a healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we cannot deny is, at the end of the day, a healthy environment is an important factor that contributes towards a healthy human being. And
Mm-hmm.
for the environment to be healthy, we have to play our role, we have to play our part. And one of the things that we should do is to ensure that our waste is managed properly. And wherever we can, whenever we can, we try to reduce and minimize the amount of waste that we actually throw away, especially food waste.
Right. Okay, thank you. How about we begin with the definition of food waste firstly, and what are the categories, if there is, of food waste, Dr. Sheikh?
Right. When we mention food waste, I think many people may not think that that there are more than one category.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start off with what the meaning or the what we mean by food waste. In
Yeah.
simple terms, food waste refers to food that are thrown away or
Mm-hmm.
not eaten for a number of reasons. Food waste occurs throughout its journey from the farm to our table, including during production, processing, preparation, and also during the process of consumption or eating the food itself. And food
Mm-hmm.
waste only occurs because of food waste also occurs because of
Mm-hmm.
excessive production or
Mm-hmm.
preparation where that is still good is left uneaten. And we've seen this happening before, especially if there is an oversupply of food.
Yeah.
We've seen good vegetables being thrown away because nobody is there to buy them. Similarly with fruits, And also, when we are at home, we prepare more than what we can actually consume. And this results in the food being thrown away
Yeah.
as food waste. Uh, as for categories, we can actually categorize food waste into two. The first is unavoidable food waste, also
Mm-hmm.
known as inedible scraps. And this category includes the parts of food that are generally considered to be inedible, the parts of food that we do not actually eat and we cannot eat for obvious reasons, such as fruit and vegetable peels, meat and fish bones, eggshells. These are the things that we can't actually consume. We
Yeah.
cannot eat these, so we throw them away. So
Right.
in Malaysia, statistically speaking, for this category, it makes up approximately 76%, or a little over three-quarter of the total amount of food waste.
Let's see.
Sorry. The second category is the
Mm-hmm.
avoidable food waste, and this is where our focus should be. This is in contrast to the first category because they are made up of edible food, food that we can still eat. And this category includes food that could have been eaten by us, but is wasted for a number of reasons. For example, the food becoming spoiled when not consumed or not stored properly, or was
Mm-hmm.
damaged in the processing or preparation, or was prepared in excess. And this makes up of the remaining statistics of just under one quarter, or 24% of the food waste produced in Malaysia. Now, interestingly, when it comes to this second category, which is the avoidable food waste, more often than not, we find that people throw away or do not eat the food for reasons that are actually a reflection of their own bad habits or their own character. For example, picky eaters, people who are choosy when eating, may
Mm-hmm.
not eat certain ingredients found in their dish. A person who eats noodles, for example, but do not eat certain types of vegetables like sprouts, may put them aside, resulting in these vegetables being
Mm-hmm.
thrown away, even though these vegetables are still good to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may simply throw away food because of their ugly looks. Some fruits and vegetables may look disfigured or grotesque or ugly, but that does not mean that they are not good to be eaten.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we tend to judge the fruits and vegetables based on their looks,
Mm-hmm.
resulting in not so good looking ones being thrown away as waste. This is very unfortunate because even
Yeah.
if you have an ugly apple or
Mm-hmm.
a disfigured pear, they are still good to eat. They may not look good,
Perfect. Yeah.
but they may not look perfect. They may not look good, but they still taste
Mm-mm.
good. So this is something that we should, try to change. This is the part where I say we should unlearn the
Yeah.
old bad habits, and we relearn the good habits that we should have when it comes to managing our
Mm-hmm.
food, so that we don't simply throw good food away.
Right. Those are the categories of food waste. Now, what are usually the various reasons for people to throw away their food, Dr. Shah?
Yes, that's a good question. I think a good question that we should try to understand the reasons
Mm.
behind people throwing away their food. There are many reasons for this.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, the first and most obvious reason is that we buy more than what we need. So
Mm-hmm.
when we purchase things in excess, especially food items that have best before or used before dates, and then we forget that we actually bought them, or we did not actually use the food that we buy. Then at the end of the day, we throw the food away. So we have to avoid excessive buying. uh, this is related to the second reason, because when we buy perishable food in bulk or in excess. So we need to always be aware of the perishable food, especially when it comes to the information regarding use before or best before.
Mm-hmm.
If something is to be used before a certain date, we have to make sure that they are consumed before that date. Otherwise, we have to throw them away because they are already spoiled. So if we want to buy perishable food, make sure we plan carefully, buy only what we need in the amount or the number that we need, so that we can minimize the possibility of having to throw away the food later on. Um, Another reason for people throwing away food is because the food is not stored properly.
Mm-hmm.
Some food may require refrigeration. Some food may have to be stored in freezers. So we have to be aware of all this. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if food that needs to be put in the refrigerator, for example, if it is left outside at room temperature, the food may become spoiled later on. So this is something that we also need to be aware of. Another reason for people throwing away their food, something that has been mentioned earlier, we prepare our food in excess. We prepare more than what we actually need. Each of us actually, we have to understand that we have a limitation when it comes to consumption. We
Yeah.
can only eat a certain amount of food at any one particular time. So when
Mm-hmm.
food is prepared in excess, if there is nobody else to eat the food, then unfortunately, the easiest way for most people is just to throw the food away.
Mm.
And The next reason has to do with what we mentioned earlier, picky eaters.
Mm.
People who are selective or choosy when it comes to what they eat. Maybe they don't like what is being prepared or what is being served, or maybe there is something in the food that is being served that they do not like, which results in the food being thrown away for that very reason. So I know it's quite a challenge to manage picky eaters, and for people who prepare food, it's not easy to prepare something that everybody likes. Yeah? So this
Yeah.
is a challenge, I think, that has to do with our own habits. So picky eaters is also something that we should be aware of, especially if we have children.
Mm-hmm.
Some children may not like vegetables. So
Yeah.
perhaps we have to find a way to encourage them to eat their greens, so
Mm-hmm.
that if there are vegetables in the dish that is being prepared, they don't just simply, put them aside and later on the vegetables are being thrown away. So we need to educate the value of food to our children so that they can appreciate what is being served to them, what is being prepared for them, and so that they will eat what is being prepared. Especially, vegetables are good for you. It's full of nutrients that we need for our body. So it's going to be a very sad day if we just simply throw something that our body needs. Yeah? Something that is valuable for our body, we just throw away. This is something that we should really avoid. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, one reason that people throw away their food is perhaps because of certain lifestyles that lead to food wastage. For example, some people may enjoy going to buffets, but when we go to buffets, sometimes we take more than what we need. Yeah? And at the end of the day, what we don't eat, they are simply being discarded. So these are some of the reasons behind food being wasted. We should be
Mm-hmm.
aware of these reasons. If we fall under any of these categories, then I think it is incumbent upon us to improve ourselves,
Yeah.
to unlearn the bad habits and relearn the good habits in order to avoid food
Mm-hmm.
wastage.
Yes, as we can see, those reasons are actually, some of it are actually avoidable, something that is in our control,
True,
right? Right. So
true.
now, to give our listeners a better picture of this issue, what is the composition of food waste in Malaysia, Dr. Sheh, as compared to other types of solid waste, maybe?
Yes. Okay. You see, there are many types of solid waste that we
Mm.
produce on a daily basis from our homes. So, from a report from Solid Waste Management Lab way back in 2015, food waste, both categories, unavoidable food waste and also avoidable food waste, makes up approximately 44.5% of the total solid waste in Malaysia. So, in other words, almost half of the solid waste found in Malaysia are actually food waste. So, that's a huge amount of
Yeah.
food that we actually throw away. As comparison for our own knowledge, I think it's also good to know what are the other types of solid waste that we throw into our garbage bin aside from food. Plastics, plastics make up 13.2% of solid waste that we throw away. And then the next highest is diapers, 12.1%,
Mm.
paper, 8.5%. We also have farm waste, about 5.8%, glass, 3.3%, textile, 3.1%, metal, 2.7%, rubber, 1.8%, Tetra Pak cartons, the cartons that store certain drinks,
Yeah.
1.6%, wood, 1.4%, hazardous household waste, 1.3%, and leather, 0.4%. Other things that do not comprise the things that I've just mentioned makes up about 0.5%. So these are the types of solid waste that we produce in Malaysia. Aside from food waste, which makes up almost half of the amount of food of solid waste, the highest is plastics, diapers, and paper. So again, it's good for us to know this statistics because it can help us to manage our throwing away habit. Things that we discard off easily, plastics, for example. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
plastics can be reused, and plastics, as we know, is one environmental concern. The amount of plastics being thrown away, not just in landfills, but also in oceans, are so huge that it's a cause of concern for scientists and also environmentalists and also health experts because definitely it has an impact on our health. But
Mm-hmm.
inshallah, perhaps given the opportunity, I'll highlight this issue again in one of the coming episodes of Man and Nature, focusing
Yes.
on other other forms of solid waste. Yeah? But for today, we
Yes.
are focusing on food waste.
And also in the future, we might want to know how these wastes are being managed. What happened after we, discard them. So
Mhm.
inshallah in future. But yeah, like you said, we focus today on our food waste. How can we, help reduce food waste first in our homes? I mean, we start everything from home. So Dr.
True.
Shah. Yeah.
Uh, that's a good point. We have to start from our home, before we
Yeah.
expect everyone else to do this.
Yeah.
Let's start with ourselves. So there are so
Yeah.
many things that we can do at various levels and stages for us to reduce food waste, especially beginning with our homes.
Yeah.
The first is at the level of planning. So we need to plan what we buy. That is, we buy only the things that we need, not buy everything that we see. So I think it's a good habit if we have a shopping list, a list
Yeah.
of the things that we need, we actually need, and these are the only things that we buy. So
Yeah.
don't be easily swayed by persuasions. If you see something cheap, but we don't
Yeah.
actually need it, so avoid from buying this kind of things. When we plan what we buy, so we it comes to the next stage where we purchase. We only buy in the right quantity according to our needs, and not buy in excess. As mentioned a number of times before, not only today but also in previous episodes, one of the problems that lead to food waste is because we buy things in excess.
Yeah.
If you remember way back when the pandemic started, people start panic buying. They
Mm-hmm.
buy things more than what we need. At the end of the day, some of the things are being thrown away because
Right.
they can't use it. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to be realistic. We have to buy, according to what we actually need.
Yes.
Then comes the problem or the issue of storage. We should
Mm-hmm.
consume food that we should ensure that food is stored in the proper manner, to avoid from being spoiled. But at the same time, we have to remember we may have food that we have bought before
Mm-hmm.
earlier. So why not we consume food that was bought or that was bought earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
store the ones we just buy as for future use. So this is
Yeah.
to avoid the old food that we have bought probably a few days ago or last week from becoming spoiled or from going past their use before date. So
Right.
again, in a way, storage has also to do with planning. When we
Yes.
buy, the way we store our food, make sure that we use up what we have bought much earlier first before we use the things that we buy slightly later. When it
Yes.
comes to preparation, we have to plan food to we have to plan to ensure that the food is prepared in the right quantity, so that all food will be consumed and nothing goes to waste. I know
Again,
it's
planning.
again
Planning.
planning,
Yeah.
exactly. Now the thing about this is that part of our culture, especially when you have guests, you want to make sure that everybody has enough to eat. So at the end of the day, more often than not, we prepare more than what is actually being consumed. So this is a tricky bit.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that our guests have enough, but at the same time, we want to ensure that none of the food goes to waste. So
Yes.
again, it's not easy, but this is something that we need to plan carefully to
Yeah.
ensure that nothing goes to waste. Um, Consumption, yeah. We, as I mentioned earlier, we can only eat a certain amount of food. Yeah? We can't
Yeah.
eat everything that we see. So don't take more than what we can eat in order to avoid the food being wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Also, again, I like to say, don't be a picky eater. Yeah, try to eat, especially if the food is served to us. Try to
Yeah.
eat what is being served to us. If we can choose, then only take what we need in the amount or the quantity that we need.
Yeah.
Uh, Say if we have leftovers, I think what we
Mm-hmm.
can do is we can share food that has not yet been touched or food that is still good with our neighbors.
Yes.
So, for example, if we have guests who came over, and then
Mm-hmm.
there are leftover food that is still untouched, then why not share with our neighbors?
Yes.
And some of the food we can also feed to certain animals like cats, or if we live in the kampungs, we can feed to chickens, to our ducks or cattle. But we have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we give the right type of food to feed these animals. Don't just give anything, because not everything can be eaten by these animals. So some leftovers can be used for feed for certain animals. Um, and then if we still have leftover food, we need to separate. If there is food waste, we should identify and separate them between those that can no longer be eaten and those that can still be stored and can be eaten later. So don't just simply throw everything away. Look at the waste. Perhaps there are things that can still be eaten later. We can store them after separating them from those that needs to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Uh, and then we can also recycle. Some food can be transformed into other forms of food. For example, preservatives, pickles,
Yeah. Yeah.
jams, or sauces. So this requires creativity. These days, we can easily, look up in YouTube to get recipes
Yes.
as to how to do this. So
Yes.
again, this is a way to avoid from wasting food.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we still have food waste, food that can no longer be eaten. Before throwing them away, look at the possibility of using them for composting. This
Mm-hmm.
can be good, especially if you have a small garden. If you have some plants in your garden, then we can use the compost as fertilizers. So,
Mm-hmm.
these are some of the things that we can do at various stages, at various levels, to
Yes.
reduce food waste that we throw away into the garbage bin, which is being taken to the landfills. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's if we can't do everything. Yeah, I've mentioned a lot of things here. At least try to start off with a number of simple things, basic things, especially the part where we plan regarding purchase, regarding storage and preparation. I think these are some of the basic things that we can do. And
Yeah.
then we try to inculcate a good habit by doing some of the other things that may be a little bit difficult, but again they are doable. If we have the will to do it, I'm sure we can actually change our habits in reducing food waste.
Inshallah. So now let's give some motivation to our listeners to start this avoiding food waste activity. Perhaps you can share what are the benefits or what are the effects to the environment when we reduce our food waste, Dr. Share.
Right. Thank you, Hajah Mazlina. Most definitely, reducing our food waste has great benefits to the environment and also the natural world. I think before I go on to answering that question, we have to first and foremost remember that human beings are a part of the natural world. We are not. We do not live outside the natural world, and as such, it is our responsibility as Khalifa or vicegerent to look after the well-being of the environment. In regards to our discussion today, it is our responsibility to ensure that we do not waste our food resources.
Yeah.
The benefits that can be derived from minimizing food waste, there are plenty of benefits. Number one, reducing food waste helps in reducing the production of methane gas at landfills, and this will help in lowering our carbon footprint. And consequently, this contributes towards mitigating climate change, which is a real problem today.
Yeah.
And food waste, if we recycle food waste, they can also help to generate biogases, which can be used as alternative sources for electricity, liquefied petroleum gas or LPG, as well as cooking gas. In other
Mm.
words, we are converting waste into energy. Of course, this
Right.
requires a bit of technology, but again, this is something that is doable at a higher
Mm.
level, definitely not at our homes, but this is an environmentally friendly way of managing our food waste. Rather than just simply throw them away into landfills, we can embark on endeavors to recycle waste into energy.
Mm-hmm.
When we reduce our food waste, we are also helping the government to save the cost of solid waste management, which includes costs for logistics, maintenance of landfills, repairs of waste transportation, purchase of garbage containers, as well as the increasing cost of collecting waste at homes and commercial areas. So, in this instance, I think we cannot be selfish. Just thinking about ourselves, the easiest way is for us to throw food away. But if we try to change this, try to avoid from wasting food, we can also help to reduce the government to reduce the cost or to save the cost of solid waste management. As we mentioned, as I shared earlier, there are so many types of solid waste being thrown away, and almost half is actually food waste. And also talking about landfills, yeah, reducing food waste also helps to lower our dependency on landfills. As we know,
Mm-hmm.
our landfills are filled to the brim and they are hazardous because of the gases they produce, for example, methane. And if landfills are full, not only are they hazardous, but we may need to find new areas to be used as new landfills. So, if we can try to reduce the amount of waste that we produce, then we can reduce our dependency on landfills.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, at the end of the day, reducing food waste is a manifestation of the concern that we have on the issue of food security and food sovereignty. When we minimize food wastage, we are also saving our food resources, and consequently, this would contribute towards the enhancement of our food security and food sovereignty. This is an issue that I think we should give attention to. Alhamdulillah, in Malaysia, we have a good supply of food, but at the same time, we need to ensure that this food security is something that we can preserve for future generations as well.
Right. Thank you. Now we know wasting food, waste resources takes up landfill space and causes environmental damages. All this should be enough motivating factor for all of us to take notice and make a change. No, Dr. Share?
Inshallah, inshallah. I hope so, inshallah.
All right, inshallah. How would you like to conclude this week's topic?
Well, thank you, Haja Majlina. It is my hope actually that today's discussion will enlighten us on the types of food waste as well as on what we can do to reduce food waste, practical waste, waste that are not really difficult and they are not really expensive to do. The reality is to minimize food waste requires a behavioral change, which may not be easy for many of us. That's why, like I said earlier on, we have to learn, we have to relearn, we have to unlearn. And this is something that we have to continuously do so that we can inculcate the good habits needed to ensure that food is not wasted. However, at the same time, it is imperative that we remind ourselves that this behavioral change is important to ensure that the planet we live in is not threatened by facade or destruction caused by our own hands, by our own doing,
Yeah.
unless we want to endanger our own survival in the process. And this
Mm,
is why I think it is crucial for us to remind ourselves time and again of our role as Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has been entrusted with the amana to administer this planet and all its natural resources in the best possible manner according to Islamic teaching. We have
yeah.
discussed in the previous episodes of Man and Nature that Islam abhors wastefulness and excessiveness. And as such, I think it is our responsibility as Muslims to ensure that we do our part by inculcating what Islam has taught us and translate these virtues and values into meaningful actions towards creating a healthy synergy between man and nature. If we cannot do everything, I've said this before, if we cannot do everything, do not leave everything. Yeah? At least
Yeah.
do some of the things that we need to do. Do what we can, and if we are consistent in ensuring food is not wasted, inshallah, we are indeed playing our role. I think that's how I like to conclude our discussion for today. And I pray that our discussion has been beneficial to our listeners, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for sharing with us, Dr. Syed Muhammad Saifuddin, for this week's topic, knowing our food waste. And as we always reminded our listeners in the previous episodes, that this earth is actually something that we borrowed from our future generation. So we should be taking responsibility to take care of it and leave to them a better future, inshallah, in terms of
Inshallah.
green earth. Inshallah. So until then, thank you very much. I see you next week in our next episode in Man
Looking
and
forward to
Nature.
that, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.